So welcome back to the CineFiles. Today we're going to discuss one of our favorite filmmakers, Jim Jarmusch. It's going to be an overview discussion. And since he's got a new film coming up in March called Only Lovers Left Alive, his vampire flick, hasn't come out yet. We haven't been able to review it. That's why it won't be mentioned here, but maybe someday we'll do a capsule review to follow up on this episode. But before we go any further, let me introduce my fellow criminals, Mr. Jeff Galashaw.
Hi there.
Mr. Michael Foltz.
Hang loose.
All right, Jim Jarmusch. Jim Jarmusch from Ohio, went to Northwestern University to be a journalism major, was kicked out because he didn't fulfill his requirements to be a journalism major, decided to enroll in Columbia University because he wanted to be a poet. He had spent he was supposed to go to Paris during a senior year at Columbia. He wound up living there for a year or something like that, and then came back, completed his degree, and then he was penniless. He was trying to be a musician, all that stuff, decided on a whim to enroll in New York University, got in, I think on a scholarship. And there he met Nicholas Ray, the great Nicholas Ray, who was teaching there. And Nicholas Ray became his mentor. Nicholas Ray of Rebel Without a Cause. And
If you have to have a mentor, that ain't bad.
Yeah, and it was through that relationship he assisted Nicholas Ray and Wim Wenders on a documentary about the dying days of Nicholas Ray. I forgot the name of the documentary, but it was just basically documented his last, his dying days, as he was dying of cancer at the time. Towards the end, he received a scholarship, which was supposed to go towards completing his education at NYU. Instead, he used that to make a movie called Permanent Vacation for $12,000. Because of the misuse of his funds, NYU refused to give him his film degree. So to this day, I don't think he's actually technically graduated from NYU and got his degree.
Which is funny because Spike Lee was a part of his graduation class.
Spike Lee and Tom DiCillo.
Yep, that's right, Tom DiCillo.
In fact, was his cinematographer on Permanent Vacation, his very first film. It's an interesting film. It feels like a student film. I seek it out. It's not the best thing you'll ever see, but it's interesting for what it is. It's considered Jarmusch's most personal work, most autobiographical work. Jim Jarmusch was a part of the no wave scene, the whole underground movement. He was also part of the whole scene that surrounded CBGBs at the time. And one of the friendships he developed was with John Laurie and the Lizard Kings. Right?
Yeah, the very famous saxophonist.
Exactly. Well,
I shouldn't say very, not like Kenny G famous, but...
Next film he made after that was Stranger Than Paradise, and that put him on the map.
And that is one of the... films that, what's his name, John Pearson gave credit to start the whole indie wave of movies that started in the early 80s.
It changed everything. It changed how we can make movies. And he was highly influenced, not just by French New Wave, which we discussed in our French New Wave show, but also he loved the French New Wave crime films, like the Jean-Pierre Melville films and stuff like that. He has a very minimalist style. His first two films were in black and white.
Yeah, Strangers Than Paradise and Down by Law.
But Strangers Than Paradise, a wonderful little film. Great, interesting cast. You got John Laurie, his best friend. You got, I think one of the first film performances by Richard Edson, who was a former drummer for Sonic Youth.
Many of you might know him from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, his one scene.
One but memorable scene.
What was he in Ferris Bueller?
He's one of the guys that steals the car.
Yeah, one of the bad
Wait, but he's also in Do the Right Thing. He plays John Turturro's brother.
And a role that almost went to Matt Dillon.
Yes, but I think Jeff prefers his little character.
Yes,
that's odd.
Ferris Bueller.
That's what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking, is this the same guy? Because I haven't seen Down by Law in 15 years.
Yeah,
so I'm thinking, is this the same guy that we're talking about? So Ferris Bueller gets the cameo, but somehow his groundbreaking role and Spike Lee Do the Right Thing.
Role I think of when you mention the name Richard Edson.
Right.
It's so sorry.
I think it's like I've listened to, I'm a fan of Sonic Youth's first album. I'm like, yeah, Richard Edson did the drums on this, and this is his last album he did with Sonic Youth. So
now, like I said, I saw Stranger Than Paradise a long time ago. I liked it. I remember liking it. It's one of those things, though, where you watch the film, and the first thing, I think within the first 15, 20 minutes, you get the sense of temperature, and you just feel really cold because all that cold is coming off the lake. And I always got a sense of that, how cold the film was.
Well, it's an absurdist piece. You know, it's like that. You know, most film fans have seen the movie, but is she Russian? Is she Ukrainian?
I'm not
she
sure.
Hungarian?
She's like a relative. She's Hungarian. She comes in. She stays with John Laurie. And part of the humor there is that he doesn't really do anything with her. He doesn't show her anything. He just kind of like has her just stick around his apartment while he goes off and does his own thing. So finally she gets sick of it, so she leaves to stay with another relative somewhere in the Midwest. And they decide to go visit her there, and it's all like icy tundra and stuff like that. And that's one of the comments, following up with what you said, is one of the characters says, "Everywhere we go looks the same."
But one thing I have to say about this film, and Jeff, usual fashion, I saw this the last of the Jim Jarmusch films that I've probably seen. But to me, it's one of the ones that makes the greatest impact because Kevin Smith talks about how he saw Slacker and that convinced him that he could make a movie. And I could see, like, watching this film, not that it's bad or anything, but it's so simple but so moving with its simplicity and with so much meaning that I could see why another generation of filmmakers would watch this film and decide they could make a film. Like, I wish I had seen this when I was younger, because after watching this film, I would want to go out and make a movie.
Yeah, a lot of people can see Stranger Than Paradise or even Permanent Vacation and go, I can direct a movie now because of the way I see what's here. But I think what makes something like that, even though it's extremely lo-fi, I think what makes that work is the fact that Jarmusch not only did have a poetry background, but he also had an extensive film background in terms of what movies and what kind of film education he had under his belt. So when you see something like Stranger Than Paradise, there's this lyrical poetry throughout the whole film. And I don't think you can say that about most low-budget
that's
indies.
I should say that part of his film education wasn't just being in Paris and watching all the films of like the Cinematheque or anything like that. He did talk about how when he was growing up in Ohio, there was a local movie theater that would show like some of these like older movies and stuff during the day, and was a porn house at night, kind of thing. But he would watch a lot of.
Now that's my kind of theater. Down by Law.
Down by Law. Since we brought that up,
This is one of my least favorite of his films. Not a bad film, just saying out of his whole film canon.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you is it you don't like it or don't like it as much as the others because it felt more experimental?
I think I didn't like it. I'm going to say something that probably a lot of people agree with. I don't like Roberto Benigni.
I was just gonna say that. I mean,
So-
I was gonna predict that you were gonna say that.
Okay, I love Tom Waits as an actor, as a performer. I don't know him as a person, but I think I'd like him there too. And I really wanted to like this film, especially with him starring and his one-of-a-kind voice. But after a while, just the Roberto Benigni just hammering at you with his comedy. I know it's all improvised, but it was just like, I can't take this. I don't like him. I don't like his character. If he got shot and killed at any point in this movie, I'd be happy. And we can continue with the rest of the film, and I'd like it. But
My feelings on Down by Law is, I'm gonna use one of your favorite words. It was amusing. It's an amusing film. You got some pretty hearty chuckles here and there. It's an amusing film. To me, there's nothing profound here. It's a light bit of nonsense.
my favorite word is not amusing. It's ficus.
Out of nowhere, you get the whole I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. And this chant, like just smack right in the middle of the film. There's really no start to it and there's no beginning to it. It's just right there. And I felt that was, I don't know, it was, like I said, it was just amusing.
It's a very well filmed, well shot movie.
I have no problem with the way it was
Again,
filmed.
great black and white photography.
Jarmusch has never, ever, in any of his films, ever had problems with visuals.
Never. And he's a master of the still camera. He's really good at the still placement of the camera, just keeping it still and let the visuals speak for themselves. Mystery Train.
Mystery Train is one of those films that before I even knew what a Jim Jarmusch was, I stumbled upon it on cable.
Wow.
And it is one of those films that I just simply, once I started watching it, I couldn't turn my eyes away. I was transfixed. I'm wondering what the hell is going to go on next. I loved almost every single performance in there.
Were you a Clash fan then? Were you surprised when Joe Strummer showed up?
No. Matter of fact, when the film was just about ready to come out, they did a little bit of press. I think there was an At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert where they were talking about it. And I thought, Joe Strummer, what the heck? That's awesome. But yeah, that was very exciting. And what's funny is his story is slightly weaker than, let's say, the Screaming Jay Hawkins story or the Japanese couple.
Well, actually, his story is sort of a part of the Screaming Jay Hawkins story because
True.
you have the story about the Japanese couple, you have the story about the Italian woman. There's like a ghost story kind of thing, and then there's the whole thing with Joe Strummer, which is part of what ties in the entire thing.
Well, I just
Where
remember,
everyone thinks Joe Strummer is Elvis.
once again, it's been a long time since I
Same
saw
thing
this
with me.
film.
I'm like,
But boy, we are
We're
just
gonna
doing,
get-
we're going to do
people
a
are gonna
bad,
just,
but we
like,
like
hate
the
us for
film.
this.
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
I like the film.
Yeah, Joe Strummer's Joe Strummer does a good job in what he's asked to do. One of the Steve Buscemi's first films, which was memorable. Screaming Jay Hawkins was a real great character. And what's funny
Love the
and
hair.
Who is
interesting,
the manager of the hotel?
Love the
exactly,
hairdo.
with his I think nephew, right, or is his son?
I think it's his nephew, played by, I don't remember, but I know it's Spike Lee's little brother in real life.
Oh, okay. And they had, I love them going back and forth. I love the relationship. But it's funny. It's funny that Screaming Jay Hawkins would appear in this film, because if you go back to his first official film, Stranger Than Paradise, I Put a Spell on You is the song that goes throughout,
well, there's
which he had to pay $25,000 for. That was a lot of his budget at the time for that film. And then he comes into Mystery Train.
Also, there's another reason for that, because not only did he pay all that money, but he found out all the money was going to the record company, and none of it was going to Screaming Jay Hawkins. So he said that if he made any extra profit off of Stranger Than Paradise, he gave it to Screaming Jay Hawkins, and Screaming Jay Hawkins always told him he'd pay him back. He never did. So this might have also been another gift to Screaming Jay Hawkins, giving him a role in this film.
And I remember another great thing was when I rented this with a buddy of mine. It was a late night, and we were in college, and we were watching this because I wanted to see the whole thing. I didn't want to just watch it halfway through on cable. But I remember we got to the part, and this is my buddy Mike Shue back in Omaha, and we got to the part where the Japanese couple are having the debate on who's more of a musical legend, Elvis Presley or Carl Perkins.
Right.
And after the debate, my friend turns to me and goes, it's got to be Elvis Presley. That's really not much of a debate. And I said, well, I don't think that was the point.
Night on Earth.
My favorite Jarmusch film.
Why
out of
is
all
that?
of Well, partially it's because it's also the first one I've seen out of all of his films. I like it because I had never seen anything like it at the time when I did. I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it on DVD, as always, or home video, actually. And what initially attracted me to the film was Jenna Rollins. Because I'm a huge Jenna Rollins fan and a Winona Ryder fan. But once I watched this film,
All right.
I love. Yeah, take your.
I just love that you
criticism.
hate Roberto Benigni, you love Winona Ryder in the same film.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, yes, because I don't like the Roberto Benigni's story at all. I found it, again, annoying as he keeps going
I thought it was
on.
hilarious.
I thought it
And,
was very funny.
I'm sorry, I just do
I
not
was gonna
like
say
Roberto.
that's probably for me Bernini's the finest hour.
Well, I'm sorry. Him
Yeah.
talking about screwing pumpkins, just not my type of entertainment in whatever line. But anyway, with the rest of the film, the story that actually got to me the most was the French story with
The blind girl.
yeah, Isaac de Banco, and the luminous Brigitte Dahl. Oh my God, I fell in love with her in that scene altogether. But
Betty Blue.
I've seen it since then.
So am
I even like the Helsinki one, and unfortunately the Italian one. But
Helsinki one is really cute.
it's cute, but I mean, obviously I hate the Italy story. I mean, so, I'm sorry, I just do not like Roberto
I loves
Benigni.
Winona Ryder.
I liked Night on Earth. I did. I found it a little uneven because, and Jeff would probably agree with this,
Oh.
you tend to like some stories more than others. So you get
Yeah,
like a
It's
little...
the
obviously.
case in all anthology. type
Right,
movies.
right. Yeah, that's true.
know.
But the Benigni thing was absolutely hilarious. I couldn't figure. I like I love Jenna Rollins.
Okay.
I just love that one, and I thought Winona Ryder was fine. I did find that the blind girl and Isaac de Bancolet, I found that just skimming the line between pretentious and profound.
After Night on Earth, he would make like appearances in films and things like that.
He had a great little cameo in Sling Blade.
Sling Blade, he was in Sling Blade, Leningrad Cowboys, Go America, whatever that film was.
Well, yeah, they were, as a matter of fact, they were on the MTV Music Awards, the Leningrad Cowboys doing a performance. And I don't know what the fuck they were. It just like came out. They're like, the Leningrad Cowboys, all right. And they play and it's like, eh.
Blew in the face.
He had a very amusing he actually had one of the most memorable lines in there. He's like, you ever notice that Nazis would smoke this certain way and they'd always start out their lines in the movie? We have ways of making you talk.
He made the very first appearance, the very first episode of Fishing with John, which was a favorite of yours and mine when IFC, the Independent Film Channel, first aired. We love that shit.
Anybody that can access these little independent film short things, whatever they were. It was a TV show on IFC. Right. John Lurie brought out friends to do various things, and when he brought out Jim Jarmusch, they were going off the Long Island Sound to go hunting for great white sharks. Right. And they found one, which was amazing. It was a big fucking shark.
His next movie wouldn't be for like almost, I don't know, it's like almost 10 years before he made a movie after...
Night on Earth?
Maybe 5 years. I don't know.
I was going to say 10.
His next movie after that was
Dead Man.
Dead Man.
The Western, which wasn't very well received when it
they
first
hated
came
it in
out.
Cannes.
And it's starting to like be reevaluated. And it was a film that I wasn't crazy about the first time I saw it, but I like it more and more every time I see it. It's a really good film. It's very nuanced. I would say maybe that's close to being my favorite Jim Jarmusch film.
I agree with you. The only part I disagree with you on is when I first saw it, I loved every single minute. I loved it.
Fan of that from the very beginning. And you were a seer, my friend.
Well, I would say I wasn't from the beginning. I didn't see it till it came out on DVD, but I loved it. But then again, it has two of my favorite actors. One of my favorite actors of all time, Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum. Last film role.
Exactly. And Johnny Depp, who was hit or miss. He was a little more deep back then. So
I'll tell you, I think it's right up there with Ed Wood as Johnny Depp's one of his best performances. I really do.
I can see.
Very minimalist.
Yes.
I would disagree with that.
But that's compared to what Johnny Depp is doing now. Minimalist is like a light year from what he's been doing lately. And there's so many wonderful cameos. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton and Iggy Pop during that whole thing. Yeah, Iggy Pop in a dress.
It's like a low-budget Western version of Apocalypse Now.
I've never heard it described.
I would say
like Heart of Darkness.
Mix in. You got to mix in some David Lynch in there too.
David Lynch for good measure. It's a really good, very surreal film.
There is so many images in this film that he just packs in. Just like, for instance, I think it's genius to have Crispin Glover, who's basically the coal scuttle guy for the engineer, comes out and he just starts talking about all this nonsense to Johnny Depp, talking about like his life and things like that, and you just sit there and you're listening to it, and then after he gets done talking, you're like, that was Crispin Glover in blackface. and then the Robert Mitchum thing was just amazing. It was a coup that somehow Jarmusch could get his Mitchum's last performance before he died. Year of the Horse.
Year of the Horse is documentary.
Unfortunately, I did not see.
Sort of a pseudo-documentary concert film with Neil Young.
Didn't see it.
I saw it. It was okay. I'm a fan of Neil Young. And I wanted to see what would happen if Neil Young and Jim Jarmusch got together and did something.
Well, they were buddies before.
They were, and it's an okay film. It's kind of meanders. It's kind of, you don't learn anything new about Neil Young if you're a fan that you haven't heard before. But it's interesting to see as part of the Jim Jarmusch canon.
Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog is the next one.
Probably his most commercially successful film, I would think.
I guess up to that point, maybe.
I guess so. Was it commercially successful?
No, of all of his films, I think this was the most commercially successful.
It was commercially successful. The question is, was it commercially successful?
Well, I think it was commercially successful, whereas it seemed like, for an urban audience, it seemed like a samurai film starring Forrest Whitaker as like a street assassin, and it touted the RZA as the sound, the producer of the soundtrack. Plus, he was supposed to have a role in the film.
But he was known as Bobby Digital during the soundtrack.
Yes, but if you look at the credits, music by RZA.
Ah.
That was Bobby Digital was just one of his aliases.
I thought he did the soundtrack. And I read an article how funny that whole thing was as Bobby Digital, because what he would do is he would send out messages to Jim Jarmusch where to meet him at various mysterious locations, and RZA would give him like little bits of the soundtrack that they'd meet in like a dark alleyway on like the Upper West Side, and he had him like a tape or something.
Well, maybe it was so he could finally get that little cameo he has in the film that lasts all of one line. But here's the interesting part before we even go on about the film. I saw this in theaters, packed house.
Same here.
I went I would say probably the second day it came out with my friend Adam. We go to see it, and all of Isaac Debonco's scenes where he's speaking French, no subtitles. We thought the whole film, that was a great artistic choice. Come Monday, reading the paper, all patrons who saw the show on Saturday, you can come back, just bring your stub because the film was supposed to be subtitled. Because we're sitting there watching these scenes, and I thought they were trying to make us be like Forrest Whitaker's
it's funny. I think I remember that, but I never saw the.
Well, you told us you recounted this story in Unfinished Business episode, didn't you? About your favorite movie going.
Oh yeah, one of my.
I recall it.
Oh, sorry for repeating a story.
No, it's a great story. It's very entertaining. It's like the other story I can't get enough of. It's like everyone running the theater during Dead Presidents and punching the shit out.
Wait till we do a Hughes Brothers show. I'll bring that
awesome.
Story back out of retirement.
But Ghost Dog, I like Ghost Dog.
I really enjoyed it.
It's a very entertaining movie.
The old gangsters, or one in particular going through old Flavor Flav rap lyrics that he just happens to like. I'm trying to think, well, again, the Isaac Debonco whole side plot I found interesting. And, I liked the film, though. I think a lot of people were disappointed as there was a real lack of violence for a film called Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai.
Right.
And, but I liked it that much more. I liked it as more of like a philosophical lesson and mystical. And
I think this is probably one of the films that wears its French New Wave influences on its sleeve.
He's admitted this is his Jean-Pierre
Melville. Les Samurai.
Les Samurai, right, which is a great movie in itself. But
that's up for discussion.
I love Les. I love all
Not
of
a big
them.
fan of Les
Really?
Samurai.
You like Circle Rouge?
I have not seen
I
Circle
love Les
Rouge,
Samurai,
but I
but
have seen Les Samurai.
Yeah.
I'm just
Shame
saying.
on you.
Well,
Ryder fan.
what's funny is Ghost Dog was one of those films that I saw it and I enthusiastically was recommending it to people, and I would get the weirdest reactions back from friends. Like I had two friends that happened to be black that I used to work with at the stock market. I said, "You guys got to see this. Got to check it out." And they're like, "Sounds good. Sounds really good." They came back and said, "That was really weird." That was really weird. I don't know why you recommended that. That was really weird. Then I recommended to another friend, and he got mad that all the gangsters were idiots. He's like, they portrayed them like idiots.
Because gangsters are normally...
It's so smart and well thought out.
So bright.
So, Coffee and Cigarettes, was that after Ghost Dog? Because that was before Broken Flowers.
Yes.
It's got to be Coffee and Cigarettes is next. Another attempt at doing an anthology, more like a series of shorts.
Yeah, these weren't as long as like Once a Night on Earth.
I think there are some parts are really entertaining, just really funny, and there are parts where I couldn't tell you what. Well, I remember the Bill Murray one. Obviously.
Okay, I remember that.
That's
love
hilarious.
Steve Coogan and Alfred Molina.
That was good.
Two passive aggressive, competitive.
So
British
passive
actors.
aggressive. They were out passive aggressiving each other throughout that whole conversation.
Right. And a Benini and what's his name?
Well, you had Stephen Wright and
Benini.
no, it was Stephen Wright and wasn't it Tom Waits? It was that was the whole thing that came. They were just like sitting there smoking and drinking coffee. Like, man, I just love
that's
coffee.
The one that was that
was on Saturday Night Live.
Okay,
yes,
that's the one. Then because that started off as a short that he did for Saturday Night Live, and then he just did a series of other shorts and made it into this like one.
There was the one with Kate Blanchett where she played two roles, and I remember the one with the white stripes not being that great, but.
It was okay,
but I liked the band. So
it was very dry.
Yeah,
and it was the first time I ever heard Meg speak. So
I thought it was also very well. The Taylor Mead one was a little interesting.
So now we have Broken Flowers starring Bill Murray. Jeffrey Wright is in it, plays his neighbor. Bill Murray.
Sharon
realizes-
Stone.
Yeah, realized he might have fathered. He's trying to figure out who his son is and goes to all these past lovers to find out.
Once again, very amusing film.
It is an amusing film. It's
Not altogether memorable, but amusing. It's a light. Once again, it's a light bit of fluff that you go through. Tilda Swinton pulls some
Totally
bizarre,
unrecognizable.
pulls this character out of her ass. You know, this like Kentucky white trash
everybody
woman.
is fantastic. Sharon Stone is
Strangely
fantastic
sexy
in it.
too.
Who, Tilda Swinton?
Yeah. I found her
You like the white trash hillbilly type thing?
well, I
huh?
guess in this
actually-
film I did.
I actually, when I saw it the first time, I thought, okay, that's a very attractive actress playing a white trash hillbilly. I didn't realize that was Tilda Swinton until later.
Yeah.
I totally didn't recognize her.
I also think too that even though you could technically call this a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler, that he's trying to find his son, thinking that he found his son, but the punchline of the whole film, and blink, I swear to God, you'll miss it, is Bill Murray's actual son
Yeah.
in a cab driving by like
past,
this out the window.
Limits of Control.
Yes, I would say this is the film I like the least. It's very stylistically shot, and I love the designs. I love the fashion. I could even follow the storyline, but somewhere along the way, it just didn't grab me. This is compared to all of his films, not like out of every film ever made, but this is the one I would say I enjoyed the least.
Why?
Because it never grabbed me.
Was it too stylized, you think?
I mean, to me, it was stylized like the film it was supposed to be, like how you brought up La Samurai. It reminded me of kind of that style. But it was just that the story after a while just became, I didn't really care anymore about the story.
I kind of agree with you.
It dragged a bit. Yes.
I think this was like Jarmusch's closest. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's closest to him to do something commercial
Exactly.
or beyond. Just this minimalist kind of thing. The
Which
problem
is funny because he goes the opposite way, even though you think he intends to go
right?
commercial.
It doesn't really work in this film. I found it to be kind of a boring movie, actually.
I don't think that's really a reach statement there. I think it is at times very boring, even though you have the lovely Paz de la Huerta
Naked throughout the whole
yeah,
film.
throughout the film, which I think was the point. I also don't want to sound unfair when I say this, but I'm not sure if Isaac D. Bancolay can carry a whole film.
Well, I can see where you're coming from with that statement, and also, his character's mostly silent.
Yes.
But none of his actions or any of his expressions, even though he's supposed to be this blank slate, it doesn't encompass you to like really what's going on in his head. What's he gonna do next? You kind of feel like you know what's going to happen.
He was like the Black Buster Keaton, but without humor.
I don't know. I don't know if the actor in Limits of Control doesn't have presence. I think there was a misuse of his presence. I think would be a better way of describing it.
Well,
because
I've
seen him in other films, and he's always stood out to me whenever I see him in something. But
I think it's on the director on this one.
yeah.
Two quick, since we're kind of at the end here, two quick stories. I have, since Jim Jarmusch is a New York fixture, I always dreamed of running into him. And I got my wish. It was on Fifth Avenue, I think between like 21st and 22nd. And I was getting out of work, and I was just walking down the street, and I saw this guy with his platinum hair walk right by me, and he's dressed in black. And I thought, okay, this has got to be the guy. So I hurried up and ran up next to him. I said, "Are you Jim Jarmusch?" He goes, yeah. I said, "I just want to shake your hand and say that I am a huge fan of your work." And he shook my hand. He walked maybe 3 steps, turned around and said, "I want to thank you for having such poor quality of taste."
I've seen him around. You do see him in New York a lot.
I saw him at Whole Foods on Bowery.
I've never approached him. The only story that resonates with me, anecdote type thing involving Jim Jarmusch, I saw him in a documentary interview. It was a documentary about Lee Marvin. And he talked about how he's like this obsessive Lee Marvin fan, so obsessive that he joined this Lee Marvin club. In order to be a member, you have to look like Lee Marvin. And he stylized himself for the longest time to look like Lee Marvin, and that's how he got in. So guys, favorite Jim Jarmusch films?
I still maintain Night on Earth, and please keep still making movies.
I'm going to say Dead Man and Mystery Train as a tie.
I will agree with Mr. Foltz. Check us out on Facebook, our Facebook group. Check us out on Twitter. We all have individual Twitter accounts as well. Check out our Google Plus group, whatever that is. And always check us out on thisisinfamous.com, our home.
And CineFilesTV.blogspot.com.
CineFilesTV.blogspot.com. Jeff is keeping that alive. So thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Jim Jarmusch. And thank you.